This is the Halo Effect, hospitality stories with Ashley and Michael Donald. This podcast is about people, their stories, and why these make hospitality so special. Every week we'll share insights from specialists across the industry, and whether it's just the two of us or we're joined by a guest, we'll always aim to make it valuable, engaging, and fun. Welcome to the Halo Effect. Today, we are delighted to be joined by Sam Weston, Head of AI and Marketing at 80 Days and Editor of Hotel Speak. Sam has spent more than 2 decades working across hospitality, travel, digital marketing, brand strategy, SEO, content, and more recently, specialising in AI. Today, we're going to talk about creating and managing inspiring brands in the AI era, why brand now matters maybe more than ever, how hotels can use generative engine optimization or GEO, what agentic AI could mean for hotel marketing and bookings, and why hotel websites may need to evolve to serve both human and AI visitors. Sam, thank you so much for joining us on the Halo Effect.
Pleasure. Really pleased to be here. I've listened to you guys for a while now, so it's great to finally be on it as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. And yeah, just to echo Mike, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. Now we've worked together on a few projects, hotel rebrands, relaunches in the past, and for our listeners, we always love just to find out about how everyone's journey took them into the world of hospitality. So can you just take us back into what first drew you into hospitality and ultimately marketing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I fell into hospitality by accident, really. I think maybe some people do that. 20 years ago, 20 years ago this year, actually, it's insane. I know I should be celebrating, but it was I was a kind of fresh graduate out of uni, and I was just hunting for an opportunity. And I was very lucky that I was given a break at Apex Hotels as their first e-marketing executive.
Fantastic.
You know, tells you everything you need to know that it was called e-marketing back then, right? But
those were the days.
But yeah, they were really pushing above their kind of weight, punching above their weight rather, and using the kind of .com wave that was happening back then, 2006. To compete against far bigger groups. So it was really exciting to be part of this kind of new initiative within the business, and really see the impact of driving digital marketing forward. So that was where I kind of started. But I mean, I've always loved travel, and once I got into hospitality, that was me kind of hooked. And I've tried to leave a few times, tried other industries, but I always come back to hospitality. I think it's one of these things, I don't know if you're the same, but it kind of gets under your skin, and I think it's part of the DNA now. So.
Definitely, it's sort of an innate kind of feeling, and I think both Michael and I similarly fell into hospitality kind of by accident. I think we were a bit more sort of like bar jobs and restaurant jobs, and then I studied hospitality, and then you were slightly more on the kind of academic philosophy and
the history, philosophy,
which prepares you for a career in hospitality.
Definitely.
But you're absolutely right, Sam. I think the people, the community, the banter, and I think when you begin your career in those early stages, that real sense of kind of camaraderie really sticks with you, and then as you all your great careers propel and move forward, I think everyone really supports and looks out for you and connects with you, as you kind of develop in your career, I think there's always all of those people that you've kind of met along the way are just still so supportive.
Definitely. It's interesting as well, like the network that you get from working within client side as well. Like I still chat to some of the people from Apex now, and I still see them kind of regularly in the industry, and actually shared a stage at Vacancy this year with Scott Hermiston, who's ex-Apex Hotels from back in the day as well. So it's
fantastic.
You just keep crossing paths, don't you? It's a weirdly
It's
small global
lovely
industry.
Small world moments,
Yeah.
exactly. So you mentioned working obviously within hotels, and then now with your role with 80 Days and supporting a wonderful portfolio of clients. Just talk us through how that came about, and maybe a little bit more about your role at 80 Days.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm head of AI and marketing for 80 Days. So 50% of my time is spent on how we use AI operationally within the business, how we integrate it into our service offering, and how we're kind of creating maybe new services with AI to help our kind of hotelier clients. We work with around 500 hotels worldwide. So so yeah, it's obviously this kind of helping them navigate this kind of new era, really, with this new technology and this kind of new wave. And then the other 50% of my time is spent marketing the business itself. So going out to events, speaking at events, marketing the agency out there in the world, and yeah, just getting to be absorbed by the kind of fabulous world of hospitality, which is a pleasure, really.
Oh, fantastic! And you used the word era, which I think is really apt. But why do you feel that this AI shift is an era, and do you think it's quite different from other digital changes that we've seen in the industry?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've had fads along the way, RIP metaverse, but I think Mark Zuckerberg's not very happy, is he? I don't think about that, but yeah, I mean, I think you've got these fads that kind of come along, and these new technologies that come along, and they're maybe not as adoptable or as prominent as obviously AI has been. And you've had like major waves where you've obviously had the dot-com boom, and then you've had, I think, AI is the kind of next wave of that, and this kind of new era, as I say. Because this kind of technology isn't really going away. It's very different. And in terms of like the way that it works, really, I mean, you used to have full control over all your marketing messages or your social media, mobile. You could control the narrative, you could control the messaging completely on your own side. AI is kind of disrupting that, because obviously it's sitting between you and the guest. So I think, the fact that it's summarizing you, comparing you, recommending you before a guest even potentially ever lands on your website or ever kind of touches your marketing, that's quite a big deal for hoteliers. So it's making that it's changing how that first impression gets made.
Yeah,
and I think that's the major shift, really.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, that those AI summaries and all of the different kind of data points that it's pulling and making that summary, and that whole sort of guest journey and discovery has changed so much, I think, from that kind of traditional, very neat marketing funnel that we all would work towards kind of prior to this shift. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of brand, and before we get into the real sort of details of how AI is kind of pulling and creating these overviews. So with the work that you do with 80 Days, and it really supports hotels with brand, with digital, and as really as a full service. But from your perspective, does AI make brand more important or less important?
I think it's possibly an obvious answer where I'm going to go here, but I think it has to be more important. Not just because we offer brand services at 80 Days, but I think you look at the way that brand has evolved over the years, and we've always talked about how important it is to have a strong brand within hospitality, which is obviously such a competitive marketplace, especially at that sort of city level. But now it's not necessarily about just brand strength; it's brand legibility as well. So being able to be understood by these large language models like ChatGPT and having a really crystal clear brand positioning is becoming, super, super vital. Because in traditional search, the days of old, you could really compensate for kind of a weak brand with strong search engine optimization, and you could, counter it with sort of paid advertising. But AI is very different; doesn't really work like that. So when someone asks like ChatGPT or any of these other large language models for a recommendation, AI is not just ranking; it's not just kind of putting you into a sea of blue links. It's judging. It's making a judgment, and if you have really clear brand signals that tell the AI exactly who you are, what you're about, what you're for, as long as you're not vague, you're not kind of contradictory, then I think that's where where the importance of brand is coming in now, in terms of that really having a really good, strong understanding of your positioning and your kind of place in the market. Yeah,
and I think that's such an important point around your sort of unique identifiers as a brand. If your employees, your guests, your audience know what you're about, then as you say, these large language models, journalists that are coming to visit, influencers that are coming, everyone is I suppose kind of kind of showcasing very crystal clear narrative. So then it's just very clear then for the AIs when it's reading those kind of overviews to sort of serve that content up in a really clear way, much clearer than I'm explaining it right now, I think. So,
well, it's just that the ambiguity, isn't it? If there's any ambiguity, then I think it's just that it starts to. I mean, I've heard people calling it kind of AI doubt. When it can't make an educated judgment on whether it should show you for a prompt, then 9 times out of 10 it just probably won't. So, and given that these shortlists that you're seeing in ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, Perplexity, are maybe 5 to 10 hotels being shortlisted for a particular search or a prompt, being in that shortlist becomes absolutely vital.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, it's just kind of shifted so much. So I suppose in terms of kind of getting into the detail of generative engine optimization or GEO and discoverability, can you just explain to our listeners GEO in simple terms?
Well, it's like we don't have enough acronyms in hospitality, right? Let's add a few more in.
Exactly.
Within AI, there seems to be a new one every week as well. It's almost impossible to keep a handle of. But I mean, it's GEO, generative engine optimization, is the way we see it, is really an evolution of search engine optimization, which has been around obviously for over 20 years, and but it's a kind of fundamentally different type of search. So SEO is, as I mentioned before, really about trying to get yourself into this kind of list of links and ranking yourself on page one of many pages. But GEO is more about making your hotel brand easy for AI to understand, summarize, and recommend. So it's less about the kind of old approach of keywords and ramming keywords into your content, and more about the meaning and the context of your brand. Because it's not looking for keyword densities. It's really looking to read your content and understand the context. It's trying to build entity association. So what should it associate with your brand, which is similar to the way that kind of keywords worked back in the day. And it's looking at like statistical probabilities. So how likely is it that your brand should show up against luxury hotel in London, or the various different prompts that are out there. The main shift is really from I say these keywords to this kind of more conversational approach as well, because for the traveler it's so much more valuable to use large language models like ChatGPT. Because, I mean, if you've used it yourself to plan travel, it's just so much better, right?
Well, we had a wonderful extended break last summer, and we went to Thailand and to Bali. And although I know Thailand very well and lived and worked out there for a number of years, we really used it was ChatGPT that we used just to kind of give us some sort of structure to itinerary, things that we hadn't actually considered, just trying to work out a plan. And we were really detailed, sort of putting in family, ages of kids, what would you recommend. It was cool in Bangkok, which I mean is a city that's just constantly evolving. It gave us some brilliant recommendations, sort of above and beyond some of the more, I suppose, kind of go-to places that you would absolutely want to go and see. But we went to this really cool neighborhood, and it was so hot, as you can imagine. The kids ended up doing this amazing kind of like VR sort of game that was like really immersive and like really kind of innovative, wasn't it? And they just thought it was incredible, and it was just such a sort of random recommendation.
In a shopping centre, wasn't it?
Absolutely loved it in this shopping centre in Ekamai, in this like quite cool neighborhood in Bangkok. So.
That's where it's so useful. From I mean, like a day trip. We were in Loch Lomond last weekend, up here in Scotland, and it's a best part of a 2-hour drive home. And I've got a 3 and a 6-year-old. So ChatGPT finding me a stop-off point to keep them happy and awake as well. Yeah. No danger naps, thank you. Was absolutely was a godsend, because we managed to kind of pit stop on the way home and find something to do on the way back that basically kept them entertained. So yeah, it's just, I mean, even like things like that, which obviously are a throwaway, but I barely use Google search, traditional search anymore now, because the value is just in the AI.
Very much so, and I think, as you say, it is more conversational. You're almost asking for a recommendation. This is what we're thinking of. We like this. We don't like that. This is, the ages of everyone involved, and it's much more of, as you say, a conversation. And it's no longer you just typing in, I want to go to one of the best spa hotels in London. It's very much, and I want to do this, and this is, you're giving so much more context and detail, and as a result, getting something that is a lot more personalised in terms of the results.
And of course, that's fantastic for us, brilliant for us. But for a marketer, trying to measure that is pretty tricky because
yes.
you've got like trying to rank for luxury hotels in London, and exactly where you're on that list on a traditional search, and you can try and make improvements either way, obviously, on it. All the variations of prompts that exist out there, and of course all the personalization that's going into it. So as the AI learns more about you and starts to personalize the responses around you, measuring that is becoming a real challenge. So it is tricky, and also the directly attributable traffic that comes from these large language models. So people that are finding you on a large language model and clicking on your link and then landing on your site is still relatively low, and same with the revenue that's coming from it.
Right.
But that doesn't give you the full picture, because being in that initial discovery phase and getting your brand in that kind of that shortlist, we all know the path to booking is getting increasingly more complex and increasingly more fragmented. So being part of that initial discovery phase and perhaps not necessarily seeing a direct booking coming from AI, but maybe down the road they come back to your website via TripAdvisor, via maybe a traditional search.
Sure.
It's really important to get into that initial list.
Yeah, and just building that sort of visibility and recognition. So in terms of, and I'm sure obviously this is a hugely complex process, but there's obviously a lot of work that hotels can do kind of on their own website to make themselves more visible from a kind of AI. But where else is AI pulling hotel information from, Sam, to sort of form these overviews?
I mean, it's a cop-out answer, but I'd say pretty much everywhere online, everywhere in the kind of digital ecosystem. I mean, these models are trained on billions of parameters from across the internet. They're very data hungry. And that's obviously what makes it challenging, because you cannot update absolutely everything about your brand on the internet. But where we've tested kind of these recommendations and asking platforms like ChatGPT, by the way, I can't say ChatGPT anymore without immediately defaulting to seeing Boris Johnson in my head from that horrendous video of him. ChatGPT, so please, apologies if I do sound like Boris at any point. But I think, when we tested these sources, the sources that are cited in these listings are really varied. So it could be OTA listings, it could be review sites, it could be travel publications like Condé Nast, like Forbes, press articles, listicles, the top 5 budget hotels in X, destination content, destination guides, social content, and of course, and the most important one, and the one we obviously want to influence, we can influence the most, is obviously the hotel's website, thebrand.com. But that's a lot of the time that's one of many sources out there, and it's the kind of beauty of the way that things seem to be going is that as a hotel brand, you should be able to own your information online. You should be able to own what's put out there about you. And it's a fairly simple exercise to go out there and audit what's being said about you across all of these different channels, the ones I've just mentioned there, and just try and ensure that there's a consistent message out there around you, and how you're presented online.
Great.
As a good starting point.
Yeah.
In terms of that sort of content, though, is it sort of weighted versus how old the information might be? So if there's guest reviews that are 5-6 years old on there, as we've been using TripAdvisor and Google reviews and all these things for years, but do you know if it kind of puts more weight towards reviews in the last year or last 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, from the kind of tests and the experimentation that we've been doing, we found, and I think it's true to say that others have found this as well, that AI values recency.
Right.
So it's if you've got, if you've had like tons and tons of reviews over the years, but there's been a lull over the last 6 months, 12 months, then that's not great for your brand. Equally, if you've got a blog on your website, if you've got a kind of content section on your website that's not getting the love it deserves, then again, not great. Because it wants, from what we understand, it wants kind of vibrant, full of life brands that are kind of continually updating content, keeping their content fresh, not updating it for the sake of it, but
Yeah, but if you've had maybe a refurbishment done or something like that, and your reviews have sort of picked up since, and maybe you're engaging more with online reviews or anything, it will maybe weight that in terms of, okay, it's more recent things have been picking up at that property, so we'll maybe give it more of a push.
From what we understand, yes, and same with PR. Strategic PR is becoming increasingly important. Because like with all this validation, AI won't take your word for it that you've got the best dining experience in wherever your hotel's located. It's going to look for that kind of third party validation, and often that comes through PR activity and influencers and getting the right people to say the right things about your brand.
Yeah, and I guess that all comes back again to that brand narrative and the consistency and the storytelling, and so everyone's kind of going out with a very sort of similar message. So thank you so much for touching on, I think, some of those practical elements, and how you can support your clients around that audit piece and sort of owning your own narrative in that digital ecosystem. One of the things that we see with clients that we work with across sort of independent and kind of portfolios of hotels is that finding that balance when they're writing online copy for their websites, for example, just finding that balance between storytelling and bringing through that specific brand narrative with that practical information like the FAQs and that real sort of maybe destination information that is helping AI to identify that hotel is near to, I don't know, Bond Street Station, for example. So, how what would your, I suppose, advice be, or how has AI changed, that sort of brand storytelling and sort of practical AI information when you're writing copy for your own website?
I mean, it's always been a challenge, right? To balance, when it was traditional search, it was a challenge to balance all the keywords and make sure that it's still read for a human as well as it read for a bot, And I don't think that challenge has just necessarily changed, but these AI platforms are much more capable of reading content that's more shaped towards humans as well. So, and I think, when you look at it, the best hotel websites have always really balanced that kind of emotional angle, that evocative angle to try and inspire people to come and stay at their hotels with information. So the kind of data points that we all need when we're trying to book this, book travel. And I think that emotional storytelling matters more than ever. I think it's what converts the guests when they land on the site. But AI really needs that structured, specific, factual, detail-oriented kind of information, just to really understand who you are. So we kind of frame it as, don't need to, write for humans first, first and foremost, because that's who you really want to attract when somebody lands on your brochure website. But structure for AI second, make sure that you're looking through the kind of content as with those kind of two lenses.
Can that AI structure be on sort of different pages, or does it all have to be on the same page of website? So if on your homepage, I'm thinking of our website as well here, this kind of thing. So you can kind of have that storytelling section on one page and then more of a sort of AI structure on another page, or should you have everything on? Thinking of
everything everywhere
on everywhere. Have you sort of seen what impact that can have?
Yeah, I mean, in the old days of search, right, it was primarily, your homepage is absolute gold, and that's the main focus, and it's still the case. And the way things are going with search, it looks like Gartner's predicting 50% traditional search, 50% AI search by 2028. So you can't discount traditional search. You can't forget search engine optimization, but you have to look at obviously the other 50% of the market that's moving towards AI. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like content priority and in terms of like site hierarchy, homepage is still really important. But I saw this study the other day that 1/3 of citations within AI platforms comes from deep linked pages on the site. So pages that are kind of deep down, not necessarily have been important for you for historically, are now getting surfaced within AI responses because it's able to just crunch every piece of information that's out there, right? It's able to kind of consume this vast information. So answering questions around, hotels near Bond Street on a location page with frequently asked questions, with a map with detailed instructions of how to get to the hotel from Bond Street, for example, and putting schema markup behind it as well, which does have some influence on AI, less so than perhaps we first thought, because Google's just released some information on that. But all of these things start to build this picture for AI, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all on your homepage now. It's across the site, and I don't want to not everything everywhere, but trying to kind of consider every single piece of content and every single page on your site, the value of it for both humans and AI is not a bad strategy to kind of audit all of it, really.
Absolutely. And you mentioned FAQs there. I think with the, and we'll talk in a moment about agentic AI and that whole piece, but the FAQs seem to be such a key area that actually that's almost a bit of a quick win, that if hotels can have a really detailed FAQs page, to your point, that supports either AI overviews or potentially kind of chatbots on the site. Again, is that something you would recommend if hotels don't have one to put together something and get that live on their sites?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, if search is moving conversational, if people are asking these questions in ChatGPT and others, then obviously it makes sense to be the answer. So I think it's having these frequently asked questions and not necessarily having them as a kind of dedicated page on your site, although that may be one approach. But even having like blocks of FAQs across different elements of your service offering, your product offering, right? So having frequently asked questions around your dining offering, frequently asked questions around your spa offering, and having those on the pages that you have your kind of content on around spa. I mean, they don't have to be right up there at the top of the page next to your hero image, next to your kind of teaser copy to really whet the appetite. They can be further down the page because they serve two purposes: those that want further information as a human that's kind of browsing the site, but obviously the route in from AI, because people might be asking very specific questions around different elements of your service offering. So it's no bad idea, I don't think, to have multiple frequently asked questions kind of blocks across the site.
And I assume you can pull data from your chatbots and things like that to actually give you a really good idea of what are the most frequently asked questions in that sort of situation. Are there any other tips you would have for people to actually identify what the most frequently asked questions are?
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to a traditional search method as well, but you can look at, when you start typing in questions around your brand, what people also ask, or I forget what the exact terminology is when you look in Google, but you see all the other questions that people are asking around the brand. So just using that as a good influence, because Google's trend information is a pretty good source of data on that. It is tricky to kind of monitor exactly what people are asking about your brand within large language models. It's tricky to measure it as well. We're a B Corp agency as well, so there's tools out there that will measure your ranking, your not ranking, your performance for generative engine optimization using mass prompting. So they'll bombard these large language models with all the different variants of prompts to establish your position. But we are a little bit resistant of using some of these methods, because using AI is quite an environmental, has quite an environmental impact. So we're trying to balance, obviously, our usage to be effective and to try and drive as much value as we possibly can for our clients, but also, not burning through trees for nothing.
Exactly. That's a really good point, Sam. I think about really sort of being considered in the prompts and searches. And I was at a sort of hospitality tech-led forum earlier this week, and there's a lot of conversations around, I suppose, that AI governance and how it's being used in the business? Is there a preferred chatbot that the business uses that's curated and has sort of, I suppose, some guardrails around that? Are there some, advice about what people are, I suppose, putting into, the chosen chatbot to kind of, come out with a nicely worded email, for example, that suddenly the reams and reams of reports have kind of gone in just to summarize something. So I think it's, as you say, about being kind of measured and considered and also being mindful of that environmental impact, which is, I think, sometimes we might sort of not recognise that.
Yeah, I think it's a growing concern, right? Because obviously, I'm a big advocate of AI, as you can imagine, but at the same time, we have to be mindful of that. And what we do as an agency as a priority is we're trying to kind of start training and teaching the team so that they can prompt more effectively. We're going to start looking more at generative AI training for the team, so that rather than feeding 3 or 4 or 5 prompts in to get an answer, we'll give them more advice on how to kind of create that first prompt to get further down the road, so that there's less of that back and forth. Obviously the benefit is the back and forth and the conversational aspect, but we don't want to, if you're putting in a really, really sort of generic top level prompt at the start and it's taking you 5 or 6, 7 prompts to get to the answer that you want, then that's not effective for you and your time and the point of AI being to drive efficiency. But it's also not helping the environment either. So.
Oh, I think that's great, and a great step, because I think, a lot of businesses, I feel, are sort of almost at that exploratory stage, and it's almost up to the individual employee, but sort of how little they use it. And I suppose, everyone's using maybe different prompts and similar material, and actually that sort of aggregation of the information could, I'm sure, be optimized in a much better way. So I love that you're already taking practical steps to support the team and ultimately make everything more efficient and environmentally friendly. Just moving on to another kind of topic within the AI piece, which we're seeing a lot more discussion around, is agentic AI and that whole kind of change in the booking journey. So again, if you can just give us a bit of an overview of what agentic AI means in practical terms for hospitality.
Yeah, I mean that's a vast one, but yeah, I mean I think, but it's a great question, and it is getting a lot of limelight, and it seems to be the way of the kind of narrative that the industry is pushing, is that it's this move from generative AI to agentic AI, and certainly in 2026, 27 and beyond. I mean, the simplest way to perhaps explain it is generative AI is AI that generates stuff by definition. It's very much kind of two-way conversation. So you'll prompt ChatGPT, it'll generate something for you, you carry on prompting it, it'll update it, and it's very much to and fro. Whereas agentic AI is AI that's kind of capable of taking more autonomy. You can give it a task, give it a set of guidelines, and kind of let it go off and do that task for you. So one of the best examples of it, and one of the ways we kind of try and help hoteliers get their head around it a little bit better, because it is a vast subject that we're all still learning together, is you use something like OpenAI or ChatGPT's Atlas browser, which is an agentic browser, free to download, and stick stick a prompt in basically that asks the agent to go off and book your hotel, and give it very specific instructions. So book a family room, add breakfast, and I'll give it some stacked instructions as well. So tell me how far away the hotel is from the Bond Street station, or tell me if it's dog friendly. And then just hit the button and then watch the agent take the kind of necessary steps to navigate the site and browse around and see what happens. And it's really interesting to see AI agents working today across like agentic browsers like ChatGPT, because they struggle. There's a lot of friction there, because our websites, our booking engines aren't optimally set up for agentic yet. But that is what a lot of futurists and I would say myself as well think is going to be the direction of travel, that more and more people, as agentic AI becomes more evolved and more advanced, are going to lean into delegating the booking of hotels, or certainly the research of hotels, to an AI agent, because it saves time, it saves trouble, especially for business travel. I can imagine it'd be huge for business travel and corporate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's really interesting how that will change the landscape potentially with those kind of more traditional intermediaries, and actually it's sort of bypassing that in many ways, and really putting it in the hands of, again, that really personalised journey, I suppose, to booking.
When I book on websites, I start off, I often start with a booking.com to kind of understand what the options are in the area, and then I will go to the website of the hotel, and then I'll start searching to see if there's promo codes, if there's offers. There's all these different steps I sort of go through, and then I'll make a decision whether or not I want to have a pre-booked, prepaid, non-refundable booking or flexible booking, and all these sort of decisions that I need to make, or we need to make to book a holiday like that. And it's really interesting that down the line, if we can make that easier for people to do via some sort of agentic search engine or something like that, I think is really fascinating. But I appreciate I've now just interrupted.
No,
I mean, it's what I actually said.
It's super fascinating. I mean, there's a stat from an Expedia report recently that 66% of people don't trust AI to book on their behalf at the moment.
Yeah.
Which is, I completely understand it. I wouldn't necessarily trust AI to book my family holiday, because if they got it wrong, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yes, and we also grew up watching Terminator 2, and we saw what happened there. So these are.
But I mean, flip side of that is that a third of people are ready to do that right now, right? Which is surprising to me, because, to hand over your credit card details and let AI book on your behalf, that's quite a leap. But I think as the technology evolves and as people kind of get more comfortable with it, which I think is going to happen, then, it's about being prepared for that. And one of the things that worries me most is that actually some of the experimentation that we've been doing around agentic and testing our kind of clients' websites with these, is that if an AI agent struggles to navigate around a brand.com website, and it gives it a good old try, but if it's struggling, then I've seen it on many occasions go, oh, this is a bit tricky. I'll just go to an aggregator like booking.com or Expedia and have a check their rates and check the hotel there. And that obviously as a former client-side hotel marketing manager, as a person that advocates independent hotels and direct booking, that's quite alarming, because we want obviously direct bookings. We want people to book through brand.com. So, and to lose them because it's struggling is painful. But there is there's good stuff out there, because there's a new web standard called WebMCP that's been developed by Google and by Microsoft, launched in February. It's not fully adopted by all the different browsers, internet browsers yet, but it effectively tells these AI agents, this is the booking button, this is the date picker, this is what you need to select the number of adults and children. So it makes it absolutely unambiguous, super clear, removes all the guesswork for these AI agents, so that they can navigate and browse your site more practically and more easily. And I think that's where the OTAs will be looking, because obviously they want to try and attract the AI agents and the traffic, and that's absolutely where we want our hotel websites and our clients' websites to kind of move toward, is making them as agentic friendly as we possibly can. And this is early days, right? This isn't, you're not going to put WebMCP in the back of your website and see a uptick in bookings tomorrow, because consumers aren't using it yet. But it's laying the groundwork now, laying the plumbing now.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Just a few years ago, we were talking about how the percentage of people who would be happily book a holiday on mobile was really, really low. I assume that figure has changed rapidly. But it's great that you sort of compare that to people who would potentially be happy to book agentic AI right now, because that figure is going to move. It's going to now, whether or not, as you say, the websites and the optimization of the websites and the optimization of the AI will allow that to happen, I suppose, is another thing. But just having people who are willing to do that. I mean, you went back 5 years ago, I would maybe do some research on my mobile, but I'd want to sit down in front of my computer with a cup of tea and really kind of plan it out if I'm going to commit to booking.
But it's interesting as well, I think, to sort of leveling the playing field ever so slightly, because I think, certainly the OTAs in terms of their platforms and navigation and sort of optimization, I think, it's my kind of personal take is sometimes the brand.coms have maybe struggled to sort of keep up with just the developments, and actually that with these advancements, as you mentioned with Google, just making it a lot easier for agentic agents, that actually there hopefully will be that opportunity to, compete from that sort of brand.com and, more independent hotel level as well. So, I mean, of course, people will naturally have their own personal experiences of maybe preferences of booking with OTAs for, certain reasons. But then for those who have got that loyalty and maybe are driven by their loyalty points and everything else, I think I think it's just be really interesting to see how that evolves, as you say. So
absolutely, and I think for me, I think you used the word leveler. I think there's a real opportunity here for, it's not going to be overnight, but I think there's an opportunity for independents and independent hotels and groups to reclaim a little bit of ground against the OTAs in terms of that direct booking narrative. Because, if you do some groundwork with generative engine optimization, then, with very non-branded terms like show me the best luxury hotels in Manchester or whatever, traditional search, that's all OTAs, that's all third parties. You're not going to, it's really difficult to get your hotel up the rankings in traditional search. Within generative search, that's a different picture. You're going to get 5 to 10 hotels shortlisted back, direct, not necessarily direct links, but you're going to get the brands coming up. You're not going to get the OTAs yet. Granted, there's paid advertising coming into ChatGPT and things like that, but at the moment, there is a real opportunity for hotels to maybe reclaim some ground there. And with the agentic side of things, I mean, implementing WebMCP on your site, for example, is a relatively straightforward process for your agency partner or for your developer to take on board. Or if you have in-house IT or in-house development experience, then it's not groundbreaking stuff. It's pretty much the same as kind of schema markup, but with a different slant. So, yeah, I feel like there's a real opportunity there for hoteliers to kind of step up their game. And I'm encouraged by when you hear about Glenn Fogel talking about these types of things on investor calls with Booking.com and Priceline, and, saying, don't need to worry about this. It's not really going to change the landscape. If he's talking about it on investor calls, if he's talking about it with these things, then maybe there's some substance in the fact that there is an opportunity to redress the balance a little.
From a kind of hotel perspective, I suppose, so we've touched on agentic booking, building the websites so that they're much more easy to read. I mean, and again, this is very much sort of looking into the future. But what is your view of maybe how hotel websites might evolve over the next few years? Do you think it's just, again, we're building the foundations now of what's to come? Are there any other considerations that you've seen or read about that kind of piques your interest in terms of what might come next?
It's a really good question. We get asked by some hoteliers about whether they'll need a hotel website in the future, even, and I think the resounding answer, at least for the I would say 5-year foreseeable future, is absolutely yes. And again, you would say that because we build websites, but there's a point here and I was actually I presented on this at National Hotel Marketing Conference, not this year, last year, that we really think the future of hotel websites is going to move to being this balance, basically, of having the inspirational piece, having the evocative piece that pulls in humans and inspires them to book and showcases your hotel in its best possible light, with imagery, with video, all of the things that we've been doing for the last however many years. But it's that balance with the information and your website becoming almost an information repository as well for everything about your brand. And we describe it as becoming, a single source of truth as well for your brand. Yeah. So that you kind of own the story of everything that AI is perhaps going to pull. I mean, which is challenged because it's going to look outside of your website as well. But at least if your website has a definitive answer on your brand, then you would hope that it would pull it first. That's the aim of the game, and I think that's the balance to be had, is trying to find the balance between inspiration and information, kind of moving forward to serve both those audiences.
Staying with that slightly future thinking piece, and I love you keep coming back to kind of brands owning their narrative, and we see a lot of hotel openings in across the UK, across the world. And really, from the work that you do with 80 Days and the work that you do generally in the hospitality sector, to you, Sam, what makes a hotel brand inspiring?
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily changed. I don't think AI has really changed what makes a brand inspiring, to me anyway. It's one thing perhaps AI is not disrupting, which is nice. Nice to see one thing at least.
One thing, yes,
right?
We can keep.
I think it's the same things that have always made a hotel brand inspiring for me. It's that real clear sense of identity, really understanding their purpose, who they're for, why they exist, having a product as well that obviously just delivers on that brand promise, and it's very clear why they exist in the world. I don't think any of those things have really changed or been changed by AI. In fact, actually, I think, like I say, they're being amplified by AI. Yeah. It's really amplifying those that don't have that in place. We often use a kind of simple test of, if you can describe your brand in a single sentence, take a minute, don't take long, take a minute and describe your brand in a single sentence. And if you can, great. If you can't, then there's probably a good chance that AI is going to struggle as well, because it's really having ownership of that clarity around it. Because, like I mentioned earlier on,
human guests would have difficulty understanding it too, right? Like it's
of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's universal, right? It's humans have to have confidence in the brand as much as AI has to as well. So, and I was kind of mentioned earlier, like I think it's moving from that idea of just brand strength being everything to having brand strength being, of course, still important, but brand legibility being a key component of the future of brand as well.
Yeah. I love that test. I think do that on our own business.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. It's tricky for everyone, right? Because it forces you to look introspectively, which is never easy. So,
I from the creative aspect, I know we often use sort of AI for sort of first drafts of things to kind of give structure and things like that. But there's a huge risk that we end up using phrases that have been used before and generic, fluffy phrases that feel very AI already and will continue to do so. But how can AI support, what was the best way for AI to support with that sort of creativity step as well as the efficiency? We talk about the efficiency throughout this conversation of what it can do. But in terms of creativity, how can it, what's the best way of using AI to help?
It's a great question. It's one we grapple with, obviously, because we're a creative and digital agency, and the fun part of our job and the fun part of I would assume one of the fun parts of any marketer's job is the creativity and being able to apply, human creativity to all of the various day-to-day challenges that you get within in hotel marketing. So nobody wants to outsource. Well, I would imagine that nobody wants. Maybe people in finance want to outsource it, but nobody wants to outsource it within the day-to-day kind of marketing, right? But what we can do is use AI to kind of help influence our creative output and better inform our creative output. And that's the way we've kind of approached it at 80 Days. We're certainly not using AI to replace creativity, because that's the fun bit of the day-to-day. But if we can use it for the efficiency gains, if we can use it for speed gains, if we can use it to try and improve the quality of our output, if we can use it to crunch even more data to inform, a brand strategy, for example. And obviously we're, as humans, kind of coming up with that brand strategy, but it's better informed because we've got tons more data, feeding into it. Then that's where that's the real opportunity from our side or our perspective.
So Sam, thank you so much. And just to kind of summarize this, you've left us with some fantastic takeaways and really kind of practical steps that hoteliers can really look to their own business. But just to kind of, round everything off, what would you say are the first practical steps hotels should take to prepare for AI-led discovery?
I would say, break it into some manageable steps to make it less overwhelming. So three maybe immediate priorities would be, you know, I keep harking back to it, but define that brand positioning with real precision. So that one sentence that states who you are, who you're for, why you should be chosen by AI. If you can't agree that internally, then you've probably found your first gap where AI is gonna struggle. Secondly, I would say look at the consistency of how you're being represented online. Look at your website, your OTA listings, your latest press releases, look at them all side by side and see how they're describing your brand, and make sure they're describing the same hotel and the same brand, and would they attract the same guests, for example? Because if they're not, or if you can start to see some of that inconsistency creeping in, then that's again where, you maybe have a gap where AI will struggle. And then finally, we talk about discoverability for hotels in the age of AI as being centered around this consistency and clarity and credibility. So from that credibility perspective, making sure that your proof points are really visible. So if you've won awards, if you've been featured in the press, if your reviews are consistently praising a particular aspect of what you're offering, then make sure that evidence is absolutely on your website, in your marketing material. You're talking about it. You've got it front and foremost. And it's structured as well, so that it's very clear for these AI platforms to kind of pull back and recall. Because if it's easy for AI and if it's easy for humans, then it's a kind of double win.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think, I love that whole breaking it down, audit, and then just, creating a sort of manageable action plan that you can really, monitor and measure.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a vast subject, right, that you kind of have to do that, because if you just approach AI holistically, then you'll be overwhelmed pretty quickly. And in a study we did just before Christmas there, 68% of hospitality professionals are only somewhat familiar with AI currently. So you're by no means alone if you're still kind of getting to grips with all this. It's all about kind of taking some small steps to get some small gains initially, and then watching it compound from there, hopefully.
Right. No, I think that's really reassuring and practical message for hoteliers listening. So thank you so much for your time, Sam. We've really, really enjoyed, and I know I've learned a lot throughout this conversation. So thank you so much. We'll link all of 80 Days, Hotel Speak, which you edit, in the show notes as well. And I know 80 Days often release lots of really insightful reports that we enjoy reading. So I would definitely encourage our listeners to check out your website and latest insights reports as well. So thank you again, Sam. It's been wonderful to speak with you.
No problem at all. It's been lovely to chat to you too. And actually on the blog side of things, we have an article just gone live about WebMCP. So if you want to learn more about that, then my colleague Simon has written a fantastic piece about it. That's timely. The end of the plug.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Sam.
No worries. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to The Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashley and Michael Donald. We hope today's episode has offered some insights and encouragement to anyone navigating the world of hospitality or entrepreneurship. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, want to suggest a topic, or interested in just joining us as a guest, you'll find our contact details in the show notes. Don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe to The Halo Effect on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time, thank you, and we can't wait to welcome you back for more stories and inspiration.